Hey, how's it going?
What is going on?
I'm good, man. How are you doing?
Every day is a blessing. And you?
Yes, sir. This is a trip to me, man. I've been watching your content on TikTok for quite a while, and so I was just super excited to do this with you. Just hearing your voice, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm talking to you.
Yeah, good stuff, man.
Yeah.
And I see that you've got some makeup in the background, so that probably means that you're married or got a
Yes,
girlfriend or
sir. Yep.
fiance. So good stuff.
Yep. My wife, she's actually she's a hairdresser, so as you're probably aware with that, I mean, when you come into that job, you're definitely need to look the part. You're selling kind of yourself in a way, like physically speaking. So you gotta have good hair, good makeup, all that. So she's super into that stuff for sure.
Awesome.
But yeah, this room is a multi-purpose room.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking the time, your valuable time to be on the
Oh, I can't hear you.
podcast. Can you hear me?
Hold on. Let me see
Can you
this
hear
mic.
me?
Oh, I can hear you now. Sorry about that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast. Greatly appreciate it. I know your time is extremely valuable. So I wanted to say thank you very much. And would you like to take a second to introduce yourself? Tell
Yeah,
people what you do.
absolutely, Brent. And thank you for having me. As I said earlier, I'm just super appreciative to have the opportunity to chat with you and just, be able to chat and hear more about you. I'm sure there'll be a lot of interesting stuff during the conversation. So, yeah, I guess I can hop into it. But, in terms of my background, uh, I think kind of a traditional background for a lot of folks here in the United States of like in their 20s, but, grew up in Southwest Florida originally. My parents ended up splitting up, so I moved. This is where it gets weird. I moved all the way up to the polar opposite end of the country, Vermont. So I spent about a decade living there. It's very rural, very cold. Uh, it was great growing up there. It was. I mean, I think it's very nostalgic in that way of a lot of folks who are maybe, older than myself grew up like running around and playing until the sun went down. And so I got to have that experience at I'll be 28 in March. So it's kind of unique and I'm very appreciative of it. But yeah, I grew up there with my mom and my sister. So I was there for about 10 years. And then when I was 19, I'm like, okay, I got to get the heck out of here. I got to find something to do. It's a great place to be a kid, but honestly, there's just not a lot of job opportunities up in that area of the country. So um, I was going to a local school for communications, and it was a super fun experience. And to be honest, college was something I really wasn't interested in doing. But my grandfather, he passed away a couple years back, but he had like a PhD, right? So he was very much someone who was passionate about learning and growing in the intellectual sense of the word. But he pushed me into it a bit, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to do it in the cheapest way possible. Because he was helping me with that, to be perfectly honest, and did that, and it was super enjoyable, but it was still, I didn't really feel fulfilled with it, and so I ended up packing up everything I owned. I had a 1991 Toyota 4Runner. I'm sure you're familiar with that car. It's a great car.
Yep.
Packed everything I owned into that car and drove all the way out here to Phoenix, Arizona. As a friend of mine had an opportunity for me to get in a room, share a room with a guy for like $200 a month. There's like five of us living in this place. And I transferred to ASU, got a degree in the digital space, which is kind of how I got into the recruiting space as well. That's what they were interested in me for that role. So didn't end up doing that, obviously. Went to ASU, redshirted. Took me 5 years to graduate because all that fun stuff. It's a fun time, but I'll be honest. When I got there, it's just you're coming from a rural area to a city like Phoenix. There's just a lot to do,
Yeah.
and so I was enjoying myself, right? But graduated and this is kind of how I got into sales. I guess um, I was talking to my dad about it when I graduated because there was opportunities for me within my field. A lot of it was like video editing, things of that nature.
Hmm.
And what made me not do that was truthfully it was the pay, right? Like I realized very quickly, I'm like, wow, this is a few years back. This is probably about 4 years ago, but I was looking at like, I mean, now it's minimum wage. It was like 16, $17 an hour. Minimum wage out here is like $15. And I'm like, this is not gonna cut it, right? I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna grow myself in terms of like financially speaking with this type of compensation without having to live with a bunch of roommates. And I'm like I said, I'm 27, I'm married, I have a son. So
Congrats.
nowadays, thank you. Nowadays, that's kind of like fast speed, but that's what I wanted for myself. I'm like, this is not going to, really supply me that opportunity. And he's like, have you ever thought about doing sales, right? And so I did interview at a car place. That was one of my options is Toyota dealership. Have you ever been to Phoenix, by the way?
I have.
So you might know this because I think if you're into cars and you work in the car dealership industry, you might know, but in central Phoenix, there's this strip, right, of all these dealerships. It's off of, I think, Camelback Road. And you have
Okay.
like all these old dealerships. They got all their like signage and stuff from like, we're talking back in the 50s. So like these really I think cool. Really
Yeah.
cool signs. Like there's a Chevy dealer up there, and it's just this. You drive past it, I look at it every time. I'm like, wow, that is an incredible sign. And so it was up in that area. And then the other job that I was offered, and the reason I took it was just the manager, the connection that I had with her was incredible. But I ended up doing event-based sales for a company called HelloFresh. So it's like a meal kit delivery service. I was
Yeah.
going to
I'm
like
familiar with them. The
you
name at
are.
least. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't say anything about it really too much. It wasn't personally. I'll just say it wasn't for me. Which was kind of a struggle with selling it. I did well, and I was successful in the role, which was great. I wasn't. I can honestly say I wasn't like the number one performer there at any point. But I got into its event-based sales, so I was doing things like wine expos, beer festivals is the kind of like the big ticket big sales events. Those were where you wanted to be.
So
Anything to like
so
as small as a gym.
so how does HelloFresh sell? Like, do you go to an office where you make a lot of phone calls? Is it all
Mm.
about just going out to businesses? How
So
did they promote that?
yeah, that's a great question. So we had people who worked within the office who would get us leads, and the leads would be, hey, let's say there's like Home and Garden Expo, which is there's a lot of them out here. Like my wife's mom, she sells garage doors, so she's always there, every single one of them. That would be like a big event, right? So calling them, trying to understand like, okay, what are our booth options? What's the price point? So you have someone in the office who's handling all the leads for these events. And then you'd have
Mhm.
someone like myself, which is we were called sales representatives, outside sales representatives, and we would then physically go in and just pitch people, right? Just someone's walking by, hey, like I mean, you feel like you're selling something at a kiosk at a mall, kind of in a way, which is, I
Uh,
mean, it toughens you up. That's what I'll say about it. Like it was not an easy job. I think I saw probably 60 people come and go in the year that I was there. This is pre-COVID, by the way. So this would have been 2019 into 2020.
okay.
Um,
So no over the phone sales. It was pretty much all in person.
all in person. Everything I did was in person. We did have a guy who would handle, and like I said, we had situations where it was like anything from we'd go to like an EOS or like a Planet Fitness to try and get folks there. That's like a smaller end kind of situation, all the way up to, these massive expos that have like, tens of thousands of people going through them. Obviously that's where you make the real money, right? That's where you can get a lot of sales done. But um, yeah, so nothing on the phone. I wasn't until I got into recruiting, and that's all I do. I mean, at this point, I spend probably 99% of my time on my computer and on my phone. I'm like either calling somebody, I'm on LinkedIn messaging somebody, um, just a lot of, yeah, that technology space. It was like not originally in technical, like any sort of item that would be considered that, but
Right.
I think it was a great I actually really loved doing it. I loved it was a rush, man. Like, you get a sale, especially in a situation where, you don't have a lot of prospects, right? Like, as I said, if you're at an expo, you have tons of people you can talk to, right? But if
Right.
you're doing it somewhere where not a lot of chances, it was a rush, and I got addicted like quickly. I ended up getting promoted into a trainer position after 3 months, which was fast in that role. Um, so I mean, it was interesting. You might appreciate this, but like I was 20. 223, right? Because I
Okay.
just graduated registered, so I'm trying to do the math. I think I'd probably just turned 23. And so I would be responsible for managing the expectations of myself, obviously from a delivery standpoint, from a KPI standpoint, but also anywhere from 3 to 5 other individuals. It just depended on the size of our team at that point. Like I said, there was a lot of turnover. But I was young, right?
Why is there a lot of turnover?
So I have opinions about this. I think there's a lot of factors that go into it. I think the biggest thing is that a lot of folks who came into it, this is probably their first sales job, you know.
Okay.
And I'm a firm believer in you can either sell or you cannot. There's two types of people, and you can or you can't, and that's it. Um, Maybe you can, scrape by, right? You can meet quote unquote the expectations of like your manager, your company, and do enough to maintain a job. But I don't think that like if you're not a salesperson, that's not who you are, like inherently, that you're going to really be successful. And so a lot of it was that they also were pretty it was definitely tight. Like if you did not produce results within a couple weeks, like you know.
Okay. So what kind of money does a person make at HelloFresh?
So be now because I feel like it's just gone years. I was made like I said, I was there for a year. So in terms of that, I think pre was making 5.
You were breaking up. What'd you say?
Sorry, I said in terms of my so I only got one. I was done with employment. I think I made 75 in my first year. Um, so
And
for me at the time, that was a lot of
Mhm.
money, right?
Okay.
Like I'm trying to think what the math on that would be probably
It's about
um
30 something bucks an hour,
yeah,
depending upon
it's
a 40-hour
$40
week.
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, good. I mean, compared to, like I just told you, it's like I came out of college like, hey, you want to make 16? And then more than double that, right?
Right.
Um, it was a game changer. I mean, I was able to really get the ball rolling to get to where I am now in terms of like I own a home, which I paid for entirely by myself, but no one helped me with that. I actually just
Congrats.
oh, thank you. Yeah, no, we bought it back in would have been October of 2022. It's a, starter home in suburban Mesa, Arizona, if you're familiar. It's like a 3 bedroom, 1 bath, 1,200 square feet. But it's that old, it's a 70 early 70s. So it's a block house. And that
Okay.
was like my wife and I were like, that is the rule. That is like we're not picky. It's our first home, right? But the number one thing we need is a block home because if you're out in Arizona, man, like it's cold right now, but it gets brutal. And so having that kind of house really it makes a huge difference in the summer and also just from like a longevity standpoint, you don't have a lot of issues with like termites, things like that. Um, but yeah, so we were able to do that. I guess I would have been 26 at the time, which is yeah, I was definitely proud of myself for that for sure. But yeah, it helped me get to that point. And then yeah, so then COVID happens,
Okay.
right? So I'm about
Then
to, I mean, I'm like
close to
exactly a
one
year.
another.
What do you say? Sorry.
Then you can't be close to one another, meaning like big expos and stuff that kind of got away from it. It definitely hurt your business model.
100%. And it was interesting. So like, I don't know how much because I know I heard, I mean, I've listened to you for a long time. So I know you had, and I apologize for bringing it up if it's, hard for you, but I know you had a hard experience with COVID yourself.
I
So
did.
I'm super glad that you made it through that, first of all. And
Thank you.
I had COVID twice too, and it was not fun. But I know for you, it was definitely a tough one. So it was interesting. So I don't know if you remember, but everyone was kind of like, "Oh, it's gonna go away in like 2 weeks, right?" Like it was so much uncertainty with it, but no one thought it would turn into what it eventually became. And so they kind of like put us on layaway. Then we started to do calls. We started to do calls, and trying to get people that way. Um, and obviously, I mean, we weren't trained for it, like our folks, and so it was like we weren't producing the numbers that they were expecting, obviously, and very quickly they were like, "Hey, this is done. Unfortunately, like we are going to have to let every single one of you go." And this is across the entire company. Anyone who was in, sales representative, outside sales representative, excuse me, Jesus, position was removed. And
How'd that make you
so that,
feel?
I mean, it was tough because I mean, I was doing well, right? And like now looking back on it, it was a blessing in disguise. It was for me. But at the moment, I mean, that was like something where I had great friends there. Like I said, I love my manager, super great relationship with her. And so it was tough to let it go, especially with so much uncertainty where I'm like, hey, my experience in sales is in person, right? I can't do that. Like that's just not going to be possible for me until this ends. And still TBD, I think even after that, people were like, oh, it'll be over in a few months. Like by time summer's over, right? It was just like constantly changing.
Yeah.
And so for the first bit, I was kind of hoping I get my job back because they were like, hey, we might bring you all back if this, I mean, we will bring you all back if this ends by this point. I forget what the date was, but they did give like a timeline. Um, and that didn't happen, obviously, right? So then I kind of was just bouncing around doing odd jobs, whatever I could to pay the bills. I mean, I was even Ubering, I was doing like 3 different jobs. I did um, I worked retail. I mean, literally anything that could keep me afloat, for that next, I guess, what would have been 6 months or so, I want to say.
Right. Okay.
Um, and then, that obviously wasn't cutting it, right? But another reason I did it too is a lot of uncertainty because I'd heard from folks that I knew who had hopped into jobs that during that COVID time, like there was a lot of like budget cuts, things like that. So if you're the first, rung on the ladder, that's the first to go. So I was like, I don't want to hop into something that lay me off, right? So I'm just going to do what I can, just kind of see how the market changes, see how it evolves, see how it just progresses. And so I did that up until like pretty much the end of 2020. At
Hmm.
that point, I was like, okay, I feel good about getting into a company again and feeling safe within the role. And so I considered sales options. Like I did consider car sales again. And a friend of mine at the time was like, hey, I don't know if you've ever thought about recruiting, right? If you ever thought about ever doing that, there's a lot of similarities. I'm sure we'll talk about that today. Um, and she's like, I got a friend. And now this is in Seattle, Washington, so bear with me. She's like, my friend, she makes like 300 grand. She's been doing it for like 10 years, 300 grand a year, right? And I'm like, damn, that's crazy. I'm like, I don't know if that would be comparable with Phoenix, Arizona, but still, I mean, the possible like ceiling, right? I'm like, I don't know
Yeah.
what it would be here, but I'm sure it's comparable, right? And so I had nothing to lose, right? I'm like, for lack of a better term, fuck it, right? I'm going. Like I'm gonna do it because
Yeah.
why not? I don't have anything else going on. And I had and the reason the conversation came up is because I had been reached out to by a recruiter to be a recruiter, right? And I was like, what is this, right? Like, is this? I want to stay in sales, right? I want to do sales. Like, why this isn't sales? Um, and so went through the interview process, right? And I ended up having another opportunity as well, which was more traditional. It was actually, man, what is it? Oh yeah, Turo doing sales for them. If you're
Okay.
familiar with them.
Tell me about it. I think I've heard of them, but I'm not like it doesn't ring a bell, meaning that's what they do. So what do they do?
So in one sentence, a one sentence answer would be Airbnb, but for vehicles,
Okay.
right? So it's, let's say like I just bought a new car, right? I think we talked about this a little bit. You're on a live, I think we're talking about it a little bit, but I got like a dream car for me. I just got and it might be a weird one to you. I mean, technically it's a step under what my dream car is. I just got a 2023 GR86 Toyota Premium. It's amazing car. If I had more money, I'd get a Supra, but I could get it, but I want to be responsible. So
Okay.
I could, but it would be maybe irresponsible. So if I had that, right, and I was like, okay, well, I have a payment on that, and I want to mitigate some of that, right, in terms of make the car work for me, right? I could make a Turo account, post that on there, and be like, hey, here's days where it's available to be rented. Let's say you came to Phoenix, you need to rent a car, and you really want a nice car, like a sports car like that, right? You would hit me up, get you the car, you'd pay me, right? Or it would go through them technically, like the same way Airbnb does. So it would be a sales role for them. So trying to get people who would like have potentially like, oh, I've looked at signing up for Turo and starting to get my car on there and stuff, and then getting them that extra mile, right?
Yep.
Which is very much like, again, I was interested because I'm like, that's more what I'm comfortable with. I felt comfortable, but the
Is that
recruiting role I did not.
is that from home, or is that like in person, or how was that?
So
Or Toro?
yeah, this was still this was early 2021. So this
Hmm.
would have been January, I think. I want to say January.
Okay.
So they were still not in office. They had an office here in Phoenix. It was actually close to where I lived at the time, up in Central Phoenix. And so yeah, they're like, it'll be in office at some point, right? We just don't know when that's going to be. It was still like one of those TBD times, right? Where people are like, I don't know, right? I think the vaccine was about to come out. So I probably would have ended up being in office in a few months from then. And two reasons I went with the recruiting job. So the one reason was, like I just said, it's like that role felt very comfortable to me. I was like, this is something where I feel like I can come in, I can do a great job, but it's not going to push me in any way, right? Like I'm
Right.
just going to do this. I'll probably do well. It'll be great, but I don't think I'm going to grow from it. Um, Versus the recruiting position that I took, that's very much how I felt about it. And my manager at the time, he's no longer my manager, but actually I'm working with him right now on a position. Can't say the client, but big tech, you would know the client. Um, and so him and I are, we still work together, but he was the guy who hired me. And I was just so excited about working with him. I mean, we're both air. I don't know how you are in astrology. We're both Aries guys. So very much like, I think every bone in my body is competitive, probably. Same with him. And so we're both we're hungry. We grind, same mentality, right? We're going to make it happen no matter what. And I loved the energy that he gave during my interviews with him. And I was just like, I want to work for this guy. And I wasn't sure who was going to be hiring me, right, at the time, because when you're in an interview process like that, like you're speaking to multiple different managers and you're like,
Right.
who's going to be my boss? I'm like, but I got the call and it was him. And he's like, I'm gonna be your boss. And so I was like, enough said, right? I'm like, I'm gonna do it. I'm excited to work with you. I'm excited for this challenge and to push myself, right? And to learn something new. And it was cool because now I don't do this anymore, but the reason they hire me is because of my degree. That's kind of a backtrack. But as I
Communications.
mentioned, sorry.
Communications.
Well, that's what I'd done first, and then I got into the like digital media realm. And so they're like, we want you to be a design recruiter, which if you're familiar with that, essentially, like in a nutshell, just anyone who is like UX, UI, graphic design, product design, anything of that nature, um, for like web and mobile primarily. That's
Okay.
what they're like. You have this experience, you understand this stuff. We think you'd be great to do it. And I was like, that's exciting. That's cool. It's within technology where you work with very, like I mentioned, very large tech companies. I specifically focus in the Bay Area exclusively. And
So
so
huge tech companies out there. So huge. Yeah.
the biggest. I mean, they're all there. I mean, they're all expanding now. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if any are coming by you in Louisville, but there's a lot of them coming out here to Phoenix for sure. But they're mainly there, definitely, at least at the time. Um, and so that's what they hired me on for. And I was just super excited about it. But of course, like, it was new to me. I had no idea what I was doing. Like, I don't know about this. And so, um, and they have a pretty extensive training program. It's like 15 weeks.
My
Um,
goodness.
yeah, yeah. And that was the only thing for me coming into it where I was like, because you get it, right? I think you talked about with yourself, like you came into the last dealership you were at and you just hit the ground running, right? And
Yeah.
you're just making sales, right? And that's what I wanted to do. But they're like, hey, no, 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 like just
You
cool
got
your
to follow the
jets.
process. You got to learn the process. You got to do all of that. But you know what? Most companies don't even have a training program. So for them to spend a quarter of a year, they invest so much time, energy, money into making sure you hit the ground running. I would rather
Absolutely.
do that than just throwing people to the wolves. And then you're constantly having people a high turnover ratio. I would think that that would minimize the amount of people that leave, because when they get there, you're fully committed and they're fully committed into you. So I would absolutely love that. So the company you work for, I like them right out of the
Mhm.
gate because they take so much time, energy, and money into everybody they train. That's why they want to pick the perfect person, is because they're going to invest a lot of time and money into you and energy. So yeah, so you did that 15 weeks, a quarter of a year, long time. But
Yep.
what happened right after that?
So, and I will sidebar a bit. So actually, so here's the thing, right? So as I mentioned, it's a 15-week thing, and they'll tell you, oh, it takes a long time to learn a job. Some people don't get it for a year, right? No, like that's not happening. And so what was really interesting about my experience, at least, is my manager was remote. He had actually just moved from Phoenix to the Bay Area, back to the Bay. That's where he's from originally. And so I had a very interesting sort of dynamic because we were coming back in office at this point. Vaccines are coming out, like we're starting to go in, right?
Okay.
And so I really made it a mission for myself to go to everyone I knew who was very, very good at the job. So everyone I knew who was top performers, these are people who are hitting excellent metrics. They have great overall like commission numbers, things like that. And just go to every single one of them and try to pick up just any inkling of anything I can learn from them. And so I just very much went out of my way doing that. And I vividly remember having a conversation with this guy who was he was a manager at the time. He was a different skill set, but him and I are very close. And I just asked him, I was like, hey, how do I do this in a way that saves me as much time possible so that I can take that other time and then keep building on it, right? Like, how do I get there quicker so then I have more time to get there quicker with other things? Like, and he was just like really kind of perplexed by the question. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you know, how do I be as efficient as possible? And I said, okay, right. And so just sat down with him, days on end. Him and I had a really good relationship with that. And he was a huge resource for me. Not my direct manager, but someone I was physically in person. So I could get more time with him.
Hmm.
Right. And just really just did everything he told me, and everything I heard that I liked, I just took it in, and I did with other people too, but he was sort of my main resource in that way. And I actually, and this is, I'll tell you now, is very uncommon. But I actually managed to get 3 people placed into roles within my training period. At least for my skill set, there are some skill sets where it's common, but within the digital and creative space, it's it's very much a quality versus a quantity type of approach that you have to take. You have to be highly, highly specialized
Okay.
to really understand if someone's going to work, right? And it takes time. So I mean, like I said, like that was uncommon. Like I was getting, and not to blow smoke on my ass, but I was getting kudos, props, managers. They were excited, right? They were excited about what I was doing. They're like, this guy could be really good, right?
Yeah.
So I came out of that like I felt like $1 million, right? I'm looking at the people around me who I was training with. They haven't placed anybody, right? I've placed
And you
3.
got 3 of them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I
So
think
they
a
were
lot
all
of that. Go ahead.
they're all in the technology field though, right?
Correct. Yeah, they're all
Okay.
in different skill sets, but it all correlates within the technology space. For myself, digital and creative. So you're looking again at a lot of stuff like um, things that apply to. So for myself specifically, I specialize primarily within consumer facing web applications. So let's say you went to, we're on Zoom right now. You went to their website. Maybe I'm working with them hypothetically. I mean, I haven't personally, but like people who would then make that experience for you, right, within that
Yeah.
website. So like, but technically the managers is who I work with, the people who coordinate everything and make everything go. But so that's what I do specifically. But everyone does a different thing. Some people work with developers. Some people work with I used to work with designers. I don't anymore. Some people do. So it just varies. But yeah, I was the only one who had any placements, and I had 3 of them. And so I'll be honest, that was kind of a thorn in my side because I probably needed to humble up a bit, because it's a 15-week training program. I did not know everything. I still don't know everything, right? But ultimately, I'm glad it happened because I bought in, right? I was like, this is it. I can do this. I can be successful here. How do I keep going, right? Um, and so got out of the training. Things were going well, right? And they continued to go well. I never really had a moment where I was like absolute like, oh my gosh, I'm doing terribly. That never really happened for me. I mean, I every month, you have good months, you have bad months. It happens, right? But it never really happened. I at that point, I was doing design stuff, right? And I was realizing like this isn't really what I want to do. I'm kind of more interested in what my boss was doing at the time, which I can't mention any clients, unfortunately, but there was a particular client out of the Bay Area who he worked directly with. That was all he did. And I love that client. I love what they did, the products that they made. I was just extremely interested in learning more and trying to get connected with them because this is something that I resonate with personally. And
Yeah.
he wasn't placing for design. He was placing for more, like I mentioned, this is like project managers, program managers, product managers. That's what I work with. If you're familiar with that. And so um, I had to kind of adjust. But once I had done it, and this is, I think, which is an interesting thing about sales, I was very passionate about what they did. And I think that
Hmm.
resonated in my conversations with people, especially when I didn't really know as much then about it. But I just became, for lack of a better word, I was like obsessed with it. I was like, I just want to do this. Like, this is all I want
Yeah.
to do. And I did very, very well with it. And like I said, I was doing good. But after I transitioned there, I became great in the sense of I was like doubling my numbers pretty much at that point. Once I got into that space, because I was just very passionate
Amazing.
about it. I loved the people too, like the people who do those roles, who fit in to those roles. I mean, these people send me Christmas cards, I talk to them constantly, people that I've placed, like not everybody, but a lot of them. And I just became very invested in that company. I became very invested with my candidates, and it just kind of took on a life of its own. And that's at this stage. I'm trying to think of the metrics, at least it's a company, but there's accounts within companies, so specific areas of expertise. And so mine, again, is
Yeah.
within the web space. And I'd be taking a guess at it, but I think it's probably around somewhere between like 2/3 and maybe 70% of the people currently are mine, like that I place personally for this
That's amazing.
specific account, which is crazy.
That's amazing. Congratulations. So, how do you find people to go after? Let's talk about that. I
Mm,
know you mentioned earlier LinkedIn. How do you like hone in on somebody, know that they got good work ethics, know that they're
mm,
probably going to be a good fit? Because a lot of people out there don't have the best of like just capabilities to work hard. It's just not built into them. How do
right.
you find that right person?
I mean, that's a great question. I think so. If we're starting initially, right? I mean, the process of finding someone who on paper makes sense, it is challenging because you have to hit every checklist. I mean, like I will say, it's very specialized in the sense of like if you have one skill they're looking for, that's not really going to do it. You have to have this almost like hodgepodge homunculus situation where everything aligns in a way that makes sense. And that's the easy part. That is the easy part where, I go on LinkedIn, I do a search, I'm calling people up, I'll call, message, text them. Like I try to hit like three different ways of messaging people if they don't get back to me. So it's like message, call, text, right? Everybody, because you have to do that or else
Do you,
nothing's
do
gonna
you
happen.
only go on LinkedIn or do you go elsewhere to try to find them as well?
So we do have like a Salesforce tool that does, if people are, submitting their resumes, positions, things like that, or we've talked to them, maybe someone I've worked with, talked to them in the past, we have their information, we have their resume, stored. So I can reach out to people that way as well. So it's a bit of a mix of them. LinkedIn is usually better, at least for what I do, just because within the technology space, things change drastically. And if you look at average change of like roles within that space, it's about a year and a half. So, which is a fast, very fast.
Yeah.
So they might not be fully what their information in that platform might not be completely up to date. So maybe you're missing something that is super crucial for it to make sense for them to be in this position. So LinkedIn is people up if they're looking, they're updating, right? So it's the higher likelihood of being correct, at least when they're being honest. Um, likely to be correct. So that's my best friend when it comes to finding people. Best case scenario, I have their information also within that Salesforce platform. So then I can then LinkedIn, call them, text, email them. I have everything at my disposal to hit them, on multiple different fronts. Say, hey, we should talk, right? Or if I get on the phone, then I do talk, obviously. But yeah, multiple different avenues approach. Just because not everyone checks their LinkedIn day, right? So you have to do other things.
And these
But
people don't know that you're going to reach out. You're just cold reaching out to them saying, you know what? I have
yeah,
somebody that needs your talents.
nope. Now they have no idea. At least for the majority. Now, and this is something that changes over time. So I've been doing this 3 years, February, right?
Hmm.
And so there are a lot of people I've built relationships with over the years within the space. And just to give you an example, had this one girl I placed her in this program management position, and she ended up loving the role. She was there for about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months, and she's like, hey, I got this really great friend. I got this really great friend who's looking for a position. I know you're looking to fill a position. Give her a call. I'll let her know you're calling. She was fantastic as well. Ended up getting her into that position, right? So as you develop, you can also get that approach, which that's your best case scenario, right? Because this person's already been validated by someone that you trust. So, I mean, if I look at the resume, I mean, I can tell you if it's a yes or no, but they're at least someone where, okay, like I know I trust this person. If they're saying they're good, I'm gonna take them at their word for it. And not ask any questions, truthfully. I very rarely do in those situations, but that's another way of approaching it. But that again usually is you need to have established yourself at that point, right? You need to have built a pipeline of people, a group of people who also know that you've done well for them, right? They're not just going to send you their friend if you're like, oh, this guy, I don't know, this guy's kind of whatever. He didn't put me in a position I like, man, like I don't know, I'm not sending him my friend. Like, no. So that's another way, and that is the best way, right? Building, leveraging those connections to then find someone really like that is going to be like perfect for it.
Absolutely. In the company, so, or actually, let me back up. How long does it take you when you first get in contact with somebody, not when you first message them, but to actually like talk to that person?
Mhm.
Does it take for you to close the deal, get them to move or get them to switch jobs, move different parts of the country? How long
So
does that process take?
my goal is after that first conversation. That's my
Immediately.
goal every single time. So I was actually talking, and I had a conversation with a woman yesterday, who I'm looking at for a role. And this brought, like, it didn't bring tears to my eyes, but it made me feel so good. It was probably a 45-minute conversation, and during the call, she's like, I'd never talked to a recruiter like this. Like, you have been so transparent with me, your knowledge on this space, and how every little piece of this puzzle and how it applies to me and how it can benefit me. I've just never had this conversation with somebody like this. And this is, again, not to blow smoke up my ass. It's just that this is literally what happened. And that kind of ties into what I'm trying to do on the call. And I love your approach with sales and building those connections. That's 100% my goal, right? So my main goal from the conversation is to build a connection and to establish trust with this individual, because if we don't have that, then we don't have anything, right?
Yeah, no connection. Yeah.
Yeah, because this is not a physical product. I've sold physical products, but you're selling something that is not just a job. You're selling them a future, right? You're selling them, hey, this is something that's going to propel you in your career. Maybe it's exciting work. It's going to propel them in their career. Obviously, financial stuff is a big factor, but ultimately, it's a big decision to make a move, right?
Yeah.
So you have to make sure that if I say, hey, this is a good idea for you, they're gonna go with that, right? They're gonna believe you and say, yeah, no, this is a good, after everything you've told me and how you approached me with this conversation and what you've said, and now I have this trust with you. Yeah, I'm gonna trust you. This is the right thing, right?
Yeah.
And she had said that to me on the call. She's like, I've just never experienced anything like it. I feel like you genuinely feel like this is great for me. I'm like, yeah, 100%. Like I wouldn't say it if I didn't. And I am very, very, very transparent about stuff with people on calls. Like, and not everybody does it that way. Within my line of work, I mean, my approach is not everybody's approach, but
Right.
um, I told her, I was like, that's the way. That's the thing, right? They establish trust, get them sold in the position, move, make it happen quickly, because that's how you have to be. It's fast. It's very,
Yeah.
very fast,
The
especially
longer people
nowadays.
think about it, the less likely they do it. Even when I was trying to still salespeople to follow me to go to a different dealership so yeah, the longer that takes, the smaller the chance. So that's why I was asking about that timeline. Now,
Hmm.
companies, they just specifically reach out to your company and say, this is what we got. Then it comes all the way down to you. And then that's when you start headhunting out there.
Correct. So, and in the instance of, like, again, I'm not allowed to mention, I kind of went over with my boss because I'm like, I know I can't mention these things in certain areas. Can I mention things here? Can't do it, unfortunately. But I'll kind of bring it back a bit. So within specialization, product management, program management, all that. And I specialize specifically within a very individual client. I work with other clients, but there's one individual client and then specifically consumer facing web for them. So it's pretty much 85% of what I do. It's just
Oh,
that
goodness.
specialized, right? Um, and I don't have to deviate from it because I mean, I do it very rare moments, but truthfully, very rare that I have to just because it gets what I need in terms of my goals are and in terms of like from a sales approach. Um, so when it comes to that, it's kind of weird, I guess. I don't know because you don't really have that in cars, do you? I mean,
No,
like because I mean you have to know the product, right? To some extent,
to some
right?
extent. Yep.
Yeah. So it just it's kind of strange like that. But um sorry, I kind of like lost my train of thought. What was I saying?
You're talking about your boss, things that you couldn't say, you could say, and then it's a
Oh yeah,
very
yes.
special niche because of the customer. That's why I was like, I didn't know the process. Like, do you just find all of these people? Do you
Yeah.
find them
Oh,
more locally, or do you get them to travel all across the U.S.? Like they're from Vermont, you're getting them to
yep.
relocate out here. Do you get a lot of that as well?
So it's more usually it's at this stage, so it changed over time. Like with COVID era, 2021, 2022, companies were very open remote. Nowadays, they need to be local usually. Majority of the time, like probably almost 100% of the time, they want somebody who's able to go in office. They're usually hybrid. So as time has gone on, and I think I've heard you talk about this within car sales. Like it was this almost this like when I got started, like that was the easy time, right? I could just, oh, you live over here? They don't care. Like whatever, and as time has gone on, it's become more difficult. And so then with my specific instance, we've established a relationship. So my old boss and I, this is again almost 3 years ago, him and I
Mhm.
really built out the relationship and the teams and all the folks that are working there. Him and I for probably him and I were together for 2 years on it. it
Right.
it started so small at the time to now it's massive. I mean, it's not like the biggest thing within my organization, to be honest, but it has grown tremendously. And so with that, a lot of the roles we get are just managers that I've placed people with in the past. They hit me up and they're like, I got budget for this role. Can you find X person? Let's talk about it. And I'll give you the YZ of what they specifically need, right? And then that really ramps it up. So of course there's situations where calling managers we don't know, we're trying to figure out, hey, how can we help you? But majority of it has just been established through good track record of placing, quality individuals with them over the last, for me, it's been 2.5 years with them, specifically. Oh, 3 years May. Um,
Okay.
so that's great stuff. I have to say that's when it's nice. Like right now, I'm working on 4 different positions for them. Um, Not I'm not working on all of them like 100%. Like there's one I'm dedicated to, but then I'm thinking in my mind, I know these a little bit.
Yeah.
Uh, yes, kind of unique, but again, that's how I got into it. Is it's this company has really great values. They take care of their people, and it's sort of natural for me because it's aligned, I think, with a lot of how I view things, and how I would want to be treated, and like what kind of stuff I'd want to do. Um, so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
It does. And let me ask you this. Do you want to give a shout out to your company? Tell people to reach out to you. Can you do that?
Yeah, I can do that. I hate you asking. So I work. You probably saw from my LinkedIn. I work at staffing tech systems. It's TEK Systems. We are hiring, so if you're interested. And so
If you
we,
need a job specifically that what you do, reach out to you
yeah,
as well.
yeah. If you wanna there, yeah. You can. I'm sure my name will be on this. If you want to see me on LinkedIn, shoot me a message like, hey, I'm in recruiting. I want to maybe pursue a role, or like I've never recruited before, but I love to hear the story, and I'm definitely interested in getting into it. Yeah, we're definitely hiring right now, and uh, yeah. So I appreciate you letting me do that.
Absolutely. Well, tell
Yeah.
me this much. What does an average recruiter, good one, phenomenal? What is I know you mentioned earlier that one lady from Washington, 300K. What does a good average phenomenal recruiter make?
So I can tell you. So I think it varies your location, right? So, but I will say, at least for my location, if you're making over 6 figures, you're doing good, right? I'm trying to think pre-tax. I just got my tax thing. I'm trying to remember what it was. I think I was at one pre-tax 150 something. I think that's
Well,
where I was at. I don't mind
congratulations.
sharing that, but so that's where I was, and that's a culmination of a few things. So I'll kind of tell you how it operates a little bit. So we do have a base salary, as well as commissions. We also get bonuses. And that's usually for those bonuses are for the kind of the higher level performers, which I'm in that group, thank goodness. Plus. So I get like quarter bonuses. I get a year bonus. That'll be coming in April. It's gonna be pretty juicy. I'm gonna be remodeling my kitchen with that. And so it's all factors in. But yeah, that's where I'm at. So I mean, I'm not the top of the top, but I would, if I were to speculate, like probably top 10, 15%, you know?
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. And
Go
that's
from making
speculation.
16, 18 bucks an hour, like
No,
making it, man. So congratulations.
thank you. Yeah, I know. It's honestly, again, that's why I said like before with my losing my job at HelloFresh, it was a blessing in disguise. Like,
And
I mean,
and
that's
I
double
can
money.
see the passion in you personally, like the way you talk about it. You have a passion for it. So you found your niche of
Yep,
what you truly, truly enjoy doing. So that's worth more than the money in itself, is you actually enjoy doing it, you know? So
100%.
congratulations on that.
And I appreciate you saying that. And I tell those people all the time. Like, I love my job. And I can honestly say that because it's like, I mean, like I said, I'm a sales guy. I love the rush. I love to close the deal. It is addicting, and I love that aspect of it 100%. Like when I get somebody a job, like it's interesting. So you obviously I'm curious how you close car sales specific because I've heard you do it on your videos, but I'm like, there's got to be like a certain like methodology where how you approach those situations every time. And so I kind of have a unique strategy with it. And I'm not trying to leverage anybody. I'm not trying to push anybody in anything. It's this is what I do. I call them up. We got the offer. I'm super excited. Oh my gosh, like, yeah, and then I'm like, I need this information to go ahead and get this, started. Let's get this going. And I just kind of push it. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, hey, yeah, we got the job, mutual excitement because I'm also excited, right? I'm very excited. But I kind of start again. I start the process of I need this list of information. I'm gonna process forms on my end, and we're gonna get the onboarding rolling for you right away.
So
So
we
that could
call that like
sound
assume the sell. So you're just like going
yes,
forward. You're not asking them. You're just kind of giving them. You're
no,
assuming the sell, and
I
it
don't ask.
works absolutely because but like what you do, it is 100% sales in the aspect of you have to get that person to move, and
Hmm.
and you've built. How many conversations does it typically take? One, two, three.
Um, so So the first conversation is the most important, right? Like I mentioned, my goal again every time is number one, establish trust, establish rapport with them. That's first and foremost. Number two, get them excited, get them interested in the position, and then number three, make sure everything aligns, right, from their wants and their needs. So I'll literally tell you how I break down a conversation. And not everyone does it this way. So let's say like you're a candidate, right? Let's do a little experiment. Um, so I call you up for a role, right? Hey, Brent. Alex Geshart here giving you a call regarding exposition. I'm representing Tech Systems, digital creative staffing firm, blah, blah, blah. Think you'd be great for this position. So I'll give you a bit of background on me, do that. And then this is literally what I do. Now, in terms of this call, this is how we're going to do it. Like I'm literally like, this is how the call is going to go. I tell them exactly how it's going to go. So first and
Great job.
foremost, I love it. It's fun. So I tell them, okay, first and foremost, let's go over your background. I have your resume right here, but I want to just take a deeper dive into it so I can really make sure when we're presenting you to a hiring manager that I'm selling you in the best possible way with all those details that are really going to get them excited about you. So that's number one. Then number two, going over, hey, obviously, I think you could be a great fit for this, but I really want to understand what it is that you're looking for, your needs, your goals, what it is that you want. Because truthfully, I mean, I can think you're a great fit for this, but if it doesn't match for you, this isn't going to work, right? So we're going to talk about that. And then lastly, we're going to go over like those nitty-gritty details regarding the position, compensation, if you have gone office, all all that fun stuff, right? And so I literally establish that in a conversation, and then I start rolling. Let them talk mostly, but obviously I'm asking questions along the way. Maybe I'm pitching a client, maybe I'm pitching that specific position, and explaining how it makes sense and why it'd be great, right? There's so much that goes into it, but I think that's a firm thing that's really stood by for probably the last 2 years is just here's how it's gonna go, right? And those are important things to have covered because if I cover all those things, then that matches everything that I said before. Trust, it's a fit, and we can move, right? They like it, they're excited, we can move. And it does
Yeah.
all those things if I do it that way.
How many hours a week do you work?
Probably 50. Probably 50. Not everyone does. So it is technically a 40-hour week job. I do not log off at 5 p.m. I do not. Yeah, like last night I was probably working until around 6:15, I want to say. So usually I'm kind of around there. Maybe I sometimes at my lunch, instead of it being an hour, it's like 15, 20 minutes because I have stuff come up. Oh, we got to move. This person's got an interview. Okay, call them. So I'm always someone who sticks as close to the money as possible. So what I mean by that is if there's something that's going to move, if there's something that's going to get me closer to getting somebody in a role, that is my number one priority at that moment, right? If I'm on the
Absolutely.
clock, you know,
Yeah.
lunch is on
Do
the
you
clock
work
too.
do you
But
work from home or in office or a mixture of both?
yeah, so currently, and this is kind of a long story. So my job is a hybrid role. I actually have not been in office since March of last year. I actually had a pretty crazy medical situation happen with me. I almost died, which is crazy. Yeah. So I spent 2 months in the hospital from March of last year till May, which is wild.
And you
Um,
still made 150. And I'm glad you're better.
yeah, I missed all of Q2. I missed the whole thing. I missed the entire quarter, dude. Like, so I had an uphill battle when I got back.
So what happened? How'd you almost die?
So we're gonna enter tinfoil hat mode for a little bit. So because I know you've had a COVID thing happen with you. So and I'm a healthy guy, right? I'm in decently good shape. I'm not obese. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm fine, right? But so again, a long story, but basically right around COVID happened, I'd gotten initial COVID and then I started to experience symptoms because it's intestinal, by the way, what would be determined as IBS. And that's what my doctor thought it was and I thought it was. So we're going all the way back to 2020. And I just thought, okay, this is a new normal. Sometimes this occurs with people later in life and it doesn't actually fully like process until you're older. And that's what I thought was going down. But flash forward to March of last year, I'm in like so much pain, dude. Like my abdomen, I thought my appendix burst. That's what I thought was happening. And so I drove to the hospital and I got in there and they're like, they got me. I'm like, I'm in so much pain. Like, give me drugs. Like, give me drugs. And so they gave me on morphine, all this stuff. I was there for hours. They're doing tests. I barely remember any of that because I was just honestly as high as hell on morphine. But so they come back to me, this like the surgeons, and it's fuzzy because I'm morphine, but they're like, okay, so here's what went down. A good chunk, basically around 25, 30%, 30, I think they say like a third of your large intestine is dead, just dead, right? And I'm as shocked as you right now. I'm like, well, how is that possible? They still don't know why, by the way. They know what caused it. I had blood clots in my liver that spread to my amniotic fluid. It became infected. Furthest thing away is your intestines. It's not getting what it needs. Killed it. Right? Crazy. So they had to operate on me, and it was like my mortality rate was around 25%. So 3 out of 4 times I'm dead. Right? So it was like definitely really tough. I'm actually happy that I was on drugs at the time because I understood what was happening, but I couldn't fully really wrap my
Grasp it
head
and
around it.
understand it. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm actually thankful for that. And so then they did the surgery, and then they transferred me to a different hospital. But I was actually in a medically induced coma for about a week and a half. So I woke up. I was also on a ventilator, the same as you. And I literally woke up yanking that thing out. And I was in a different hospital. And I was like, what happened? I got a bag now, if you're familiar with that. I had like a ileostomy bag. And then they just didn't know what happened. So it was just like they tested me for everything under the sun. I spent 2 months in the hospital, just like I had an intestinal blockage, which required another emergency surgery. Um, I couldn't eat for a month and a half. It was crazy. And then I finally ended up leaving. They had me on like IV nutrition. So I was getting all my nutrients through my arm. And yeah, it was rough. And I was constantly in chronic pain, like literally all last year. I was in chronic pain because I had so many complications happen where it wasn't really a normal situation when you have like an intestinal surgery. Like my wife's grandpa had the exact same surgery. He's 80 years old, a year before me, exact same surgery for cancer. And he recovered within 3 months. I spent 9 months before I had my final surgery in December. I can tell you right now, you probably can just tell from this conversation. I feel great. I'm a very thankful man. Like I'm blessed to be here today. And it changed my perspective on a lot of things. I mean, and I think I handled it as positively as I could, but honestly, my wife is the real one for everything because she was taking care of my son while I was in the hospital. I couldn't see him the whole time. And like, I already knew I loved, I married her already, right? But that experience for us, the hardship that we went through, there is not a better woman to me on the planet. I love my mom. If my mom ever hears this, I love you. But I love her. But there's not a woman in the world that could ever compare to her for me because she did so much for us, for our family, for my son, and it was crazy. But I'm here today, and so I'm happy about it. And I appreciate letting me share. I've probably shared that story 1,000 times. I try to be as quick about it as possible, just for the sake of the podcast. But yeah, it was crazy, man. But I know you went through something similar too, so I think you can understand.
I can. It changes your lenses, your perspective. It makes
Mhm.
you way more just happy, and I can see it in your eyes, your face, your body demeanor. So, congratulations. Glad that you made it through it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you. And yeah, me too. I'm just happy to be here. I mean, like I said, it was more likely that I wouldn't be. And I'm working from home right now. I'll be going in office very soon, I'm excited about that. To see everybody. But at the same time, it's been great to just be able to, especially, I didn't get to see my son for 2 months. So just being able to spend time with my wife and my son has been beyond amazing. And like, especially after all that, I always loved and cherished that time. But now it's like it's another level, right?
Yeah.
It's just different, you know.
Yeah.
It hits different.
Yeah. Well, what advice would you like to share before we wrap up? Advice to salespeople. What makes you successful? What do salespeople that are just getting involved in the industry need to do? Um, just share your wisdom with them.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I think the number one thing I always tell everybody that I work with is the most important thing to do is to be yourself every single time. Like I can say like my approach, I mean, it might sound like tangible. Oh, you do it this way, but if that's not natural to you, if like my approach is not natural to you, that's not how you should approach it, right? People, especially within recruiting, right? You're trying to get somebody, number one, like to have that establish that trust, you to make a very big life decision per your recommendation, right? I
Right.
mean, ultimately they make the decision, but they're also leaning on you for insight on that. And people will sniff that out fast if you're not being you. If you're not being genuine, you're not being honest, they'll know and they'll be like, and that's how you get like the, quote unquote, like skeevy sales guy rep, like everyone knows that like type of trademark, right?
Yeah.
So um, that's my biggest piece of advice I could give it. And that's, I think, applies to any form of sales, whether it's recruiting, whether it's car sales, whether you're selling door to door, like solar panels. I don't know what you're doing, right? But whatever it is, that's the number one thing I would say. Um, Also, like, I think I mentioned this a little bit earlier, but treat the person how you would want to be treated, right? Like, how would you want to be sold to, right? Like if someone was selling you, would you want them to be pushing stuff on you, not understanding what your problems and your needs are, and then just like trying to force you into something, or really taking the time to understand what it is that you value, what it is that you want, and what it is that you need, and you feel that,
Right.
and then you have that trust, right? Like this guy really gets me. This guy really gets what I'm trying to do. Of course I'm gonna listen to him, right? So that would probably be the other big thing. But I guess those are kind of similar in a way. But those are my definitely two things that I think about constantly.
Well, one thing that you said early in the conversation is you were so obsessed. And I believe that's it. That's one of the main ingredients. You got to be all in, obsessed. And if you are,
Mhm.
you're going to figure out a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish. So many people are just 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're just not fully committed. So, but yeah, what you said, the two things, absolutely agree with you. And then just all in. There's no burn the bridge or what have you, the old saying. You just got to go all in. And if you do that and sincerely do that, then you'll be successful. But glad you're all right. That story, it brought up some memories to me as well. So thank
Sure.
you so much for that. If anybody wants to, does your company also do salespeople, meaning like finding
Yep.
sales jobs?
Yep. So we obviously have like the recruiting roles I mentioned. If you're wanting to get into like a more of a sales role, there's account manager positions that are available. And so like I can explain in the sense of like if you think about a recruiter, my job is to represent a candidate, right? Like my job is to be their representative and do what's in their best interest. And then an account manager is that, but for the clients, they're actually good. They're like I mentioned, sometimes you're going in, you're finding these these managers and selling them our service, right? Like that's, again, more of a traditional, like in the sense of the word, lack of a better word, more traditional sales role where you're selling tech systems to a client. Why should you work with us, right? So that would
Yep.
be more along the lines of a sales role on our end. And so, if you're interested in that, yeah, that's definitely something you can do. If you're interested in recruiting, that's something you can do. But and you're not like, what I will say too is interesting is that if you're getting into one, it doesn't mean you're stuck there in the sense of if it's not the right fit for you, and you're like, hey, I'm kind of more interested in recruiting. I've realized as working here, you can bounce around, you can do what you want to do. They do provide that, which is great. Like I think I mentioned earlier, like I started as a design recruiter. I'm now what's called a function recruiter. And I created that for myself by filling roles, like I mentioned, like product program, all that. I just started doing it, and I
Hmm.
went to my big boss. So he was in charge of like basically everyone for that region within digital and creative for the Bay Area. And I was like, I want to switch to this. And here's my metrics as to why that should happen. Cause look what I'm doing. Right. I'm like, this is not, and he's like, it was no question. Right. He's like, yeah, no problem. That'll change tomorrow. Right. Cause it was just, I came with that ammunition of here's why. And I let it change my job. Like it changed what I did. Right. Because I proved I could. So it's interesting, and I think that happens within a lot of sales industries too. But I'm sure it happens in car sales. I'm not super familiar with it, but if you're good at something, you're making the company money, they're gonna probably listen to you about that.
Absolutely. They
You
should
know,
if they're smart.
hmm, money, wow. So it's cool,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I've enjoyed it. Again, I don't think it's for everybody, but I think if it's of interest, it's not obviously what someone immediately think of for sales, but I'm a firm believer that it is, and I love it. I love it. I've always thought about car sales and doing it too. I think I'd love that too. I love cars, but I think I really found my home here in that way, and I'll probably stick with it. You know, I don't know over the rest of my life, but I mean, maybe one day I'll be like, man, I do want to try car sales. I think I want luxury car sales to be honest. I feel like I'm very into that. I love fancy cars. I'm like super. I'm probably I never owned like a super fancy car, but like I love them. I think it's so interesting. It's like art to me. When they build like these Lamborghinis, Ferraris, it's like every detail is just so like painstakingly like thought out. Like, oh, we have to make sure that it's aerodynamic here and the weight. Okay, well that needs to be distributed. It's crazy how they think about it. And so I'd probably down the line maybe I'll do that. We'll see. I don't know.
I think whatever you do, you'll be extremely successful.
Oh, thanks, Brent. I appreciate it. I try my best. I
Uh,
do. So
Well, if you ever need me, you have my cell phone number. Please feel free to reach out. Keep me updated on your success, and I wish you the absolute best.
thanks, Brent. I appreciate you taking the time, man. And like I said at the beginning, I feel like I did a lot of talking. I mean, that's kind of that's how you want to go, but
Absolutely.
that's the goal. But I do appreciate having the opportunity to chat with you. It's been a real pleasure. And I wish I know this is gonna go so well for you, man. Like I've been listening to every one of your podcasts, dude, and I think you just there. And this is what we're coming to the end, but I have to say, I think there's a specific thing, right, where if you're speaking to somebody, you're trying to obviously understand them and like ask the right questions. I think you have a really good knack for that. And I don't think everybody who does it can really facilitate the conversation in that way to a high level. And I think you just have it. And maybe it's because you're in sales. I don't know. But like I feel like you do a really good job with this and you're gonna go far, man. I really
Well,
think
thank
so.
you. Well,
Yeah.
buddy, tell your family I said hello, and if you ever need me, let me know.
Absolutely, brother. Thanks again for the time, and I hope you have a good rest of your day, man.
You too, buddy. Have a great one.
All right. See ya.